Hi guys, Kim here. Plazma Skies. I've just been watching what's going on with the skies, and I've got no doubt that the controllers are trying to set up certain conditions for the weather events to take place, or the right amount of chemicals to be present in the sky to make those conditions ideal. So I was just watching over the last couple of weeks some weird colours in the skies around the world. It's really quite beautiful, the colours that they're making. I'm not really sure if in the past these coloured skies were possible. I know, although I've done a lot of travelling around the world in my life, I haven't seen colours like this present, but that might just mean that I have been in the right place at the right time in order to experience this. Maybe you guys can help me out here and let me know if this is a relatively new thing, these really spectacular coloured skies, or if it's always been the case. So the work that Matt's been doing on the Sixth Sun News is talking about plasma skies occurring because of the auroras. So it's coming from the centre of it all, and the accelerated plasma discharge is affecting our realm and our skies. Usually it would only be in the extreme north or south that we'd be experiencing these northern or southern lights. And again, I'm not sure about the southern lights being a relatively new thing or not. I certainly don't remember the southern lights existing when I was a child, but whereas I do remember the northern lights being there, I can remember even seeing them as a child. But I guess I didn't grow up in the southern hemisphere, so we'd have to ask an elder person that was born in the southern hemisphere, raised somewhere like Tasmania or New Zealand or Patagonia or something, to get an answer for that. I'll ask my neighbour if the southern auroras have been around since we were children. There's also recordings recently of a sky grid and the sky appearing as a crisscross without the obvious ones of the chemtrails that I see people posting all the time. But there is a weird grid, either the sky or the clouds being recorded implying the computer matrix building blocks of this world. I was sick the last couple of weeks and I lost my voice, so it gave me a really good excuse to snuggle up on the sofa and watch a Netflix series called Raising Dion. It's about the idea that a group of scientists are researching the aurora borealis in Iceland, and something occurs and they end up with new superpower abilities. And they also pass these superpowers on to their offspring when they have children. So the superpowers are each pertaining to the elements of this world, fire, water, air, earth. Plus there's a super monster in the storm depicted as a man or as lightning, which could be plasma. Interesting that this theme of the elements is present as we liken ourselves to the elements or harness these energies inside of us, inside of our being, and call upon these elements as and when it's necessary. So could be deemed as superpowers, but not really. One of the really interesting things about this world is no matter where you go, all the roads lead to Rome, meaning that you can look up ancient Chinese practices for the traditional Chinese medicine depicting the effects of the elements on our health. It's a fascinating subject, and one aspect of that is relating to if we are low in an element, then we may have an imbalance in an organ of our body which exudes out of us. For example, if our liver was out of balance, then our outward expression would be that of bitterness. It's a really good subject, but it's also really in depth, so I can't go into it or too much level. No matter where we look, we can see examples of the ancient traditions teaching us about the relationships between colours and elements and our body reactions to these elements. It is no coincidence why so often these old traditions and their heroes of gods depicted utilising the elements. Going back to the miniseries for a minute, Raising Dion, the main character is a little boy named Dion. Is it more than possible? It could be more than possible that he's here to remind us of what we may be capable of individually, were we to remember how to harness the power of the elements. maybe this time around we're learning about ethics before we're going to be given that power to wield. Who knows? There has been certain concentrated effort to bring us the power of the elements in our mainstream big series with shows like Game of Thrones, Song of Fire and Ice, or there's a depiction of it through the shows like Frozen in Disney. And I also see that Disney's planned to release a movie in 2023 called Disney Pixar, Elemental. I've linked a link to the preview for that if you want to watch it below. Many of us are beginning to understand our relationship with the elements and assists us to understand ourselves better. In my way of thinking, the elements are building blocks to our reality and also form within the framework of these elements through harnessing them. I think we can have a greater capacity for expansion within ourselves. I will share with you one way that we can look into the elements slightly more deeply on a personal level. If you look at your astrology chart, so go to astro.com, astro.com, and type in your date of birth and your time and your location, etc. It'll bring up your own astrology chart. Just have a look at the placement of each of the planets and which sign they're sitting in, and get a piece of paper and write down how many planets are aligned with different elements. Personally, I've got 5 in Earth, so a great deal of me, or my meme, is practical stuff, but I'm lacking a bit in fire, which gives me a slight disadvantage when putting concepts or ideas into actuality. It could also affect me with my creative ability, but I do have a lot of air to compensate for that. I have also given you a link to a 10-minute short video called The Plasma Event that shows Hollywood depictions of the plasma events, such as their variants or different versions of the shift in consciousness occurring, mainly cartoon form, but it certainly supports the idea that atmospheric conditions create an ideal environment for us to perceive that which we're meant to perceive. Anyway, that's it for me today. Ta-ta for now.